the Research Methodology Skills Workshop, Stack IIUM. First of all, this is the second skill workshop from Prof. Dr. Jamal Bashir Al-Badi. First, I will invite to welcome his speech, Dr. Khairul.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man istanna bi sunnatihi wa ihtada bi hudahu wa ba'd. I'm not going to take long. First of all, I welcome everyone. Should we say future scholars, future thinkers of the Ummah to this series or workshop. And this is brought to you by the Office of the Deputy Dean of Research and Innovation. Although in the official nomenclature, it is Deputy Dean of Postgraduate Research and Innovation. But most of the affairs or matters related to postgraduate studies are already managed by the Deputy Dean of Academic Office. Okay? So it is only the name in the official position, postgraduate. But most importantly, my office will be focusing on research, publication, and development. So we are thinking on providing lecture series, workshops, and research skills to our fellow researchers here in Stack IIUM. Of course, anyone is welcome to join us, whether he's from Stack or not. But our main audience is our Stack fellows. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, I would like to share my perspective on research methodology or research skill. We can somehow regard research methodology or research skill as a language of dialogue. A language of dialogue. We have our own ideals. Okay? When you join postgraduate studies, you have your own aims, your own perhaps individual mission, okay? Ideals of your future, or how do you envision the state or the situation of the ummah in the future, okay? Or your own scholarship. But in order to carve or to place our voice on this canvas of voices that are available or that are present in this world today, so we need to somehow learn the language of dialogue. So if we were to refer back to the Sirah, then you have the case of Hudaybiyah. Okay? So it is a form of dialogue when the Prophet ﷺ was in the process of having that treaty, and and the Quraysh have their own conditions, and they agreed on some conditions, some terms. So in the same spirit, we are delivering messages to the outside world, delivering messages to the global community. But how do we make others understand our message? Not in a form that we are forcing our ideals, forcing our thinkings, but in a way that we invite others to gradually understand what we are trying to convey, what we are trying to communicate. So how do we do that in the gradual way, in the process that can be understood and can be accepted by all? There are some consensus, there are some conventions which are discussed, developed, enhanced by experts in research methodologies, and one of those crucial skill in research methodology is the critical thinking skill, which our professor, Prof. Jamal Badi, thank to him for agreeing to bring this subject to the series organized by Office of Deputy Dean of Research. And he has been in the field for a long time. You can say an expert in the critical thinking and its connection to Islamic scripture, Quran and Hadith. So again, thank Prof. Jamal Badi for this. And hopefully you will be able to benefit and also perhaps in the future develop further on how do we apply critical thinking not only in our thesis or dissertation, but in our conveyance of the message of the religion and for the sake of Islamic civilization. So with that remark, I thank again everyone for coming, and also I welcome any suggestion related to research, related to maybe like preparing doctoral thesis, okay, preparing proposal, but proposal is also already handled by office of the academics, yeah, Dr. Sharifah, but more in connection to research. I think in the pipeline we have some skills or some workshops being planned. We have a workshop on Zotero, how to manage citation or using certain citation management apps or application. Maybe Zotero or Mendeley. You can have both for English and Arabic. Okay, and perhaps understanding the citation style or formatting and so on and so forth. I think we are trying to organize that and trying to find experts. Although I can myself speak on Zotero, I've been training on Zotero in both English and Arabic, left to right and right to left. We'll see in the future how we can provide more. But if you have something that you think it would be beneficial, it would be useful for your writing, for your using references and so on, please, we welcome your suggestion and you can convey it to the Office of Deputy Dean of Research. Thank you very much, and have a fruitful session this morning.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khairul, the Deputy Dean for the Postgraduate and Research and Innovation. Thank you for your insightful idea about the research methodology and the introduction about this series. So research epistemology and methodology series, this is continuously 6 series. Today is our second skill series. Without further ado, I will invite today's Professor Dr. Jamal Bashir Al-Badi. Prof, the floor is yours.
Jazakallah khair, sister. Thank you, Dr. Khairil, for the Hosseini. Khairil Hosseini. Khairil Hosseini, for your remarks, opening remarks. We continue our series. This is the critical thinking skills needed for postgraduate students as it has been promoted and not only suggested, I believe it's more than that, by the Delphi report, as it is called, since the early 90s, where there was this kind of connection between critical thinking and teaching and learning, and also infusing critical thinking into classrooms, into curricula, and as it is promoted by Delphi report, to be infused into research, conducting research, and how to deal with research, our research, whether starting with the proposal up to the later on the writing, starting the journey of writing the thesis, whether it's master thesis or PhD thesis. So we need the critical thinking skills, as it is called by this report. We started with interpretation last 2 weeks, that was skill number 1, okay, where it has to do with understanding and communicating, understanding ideas of others, communicating our ideas to others, whether it is, in this case, it's the written form, which is called verbalizing, composing, etc. And for today's session is skill number 2, which is analysis. Okay. At the beginning, let's have a look at what is analysis all about. Analysis as a process of breaking down a complex problem, statement, or argument into its individual, smaller, and more understandable parts. By the way, which has to do with the conceptualization. Conceptualization has to do both with understanding others' ideas and arguments, as we will see today. How do we identify the ideas or the arguments, and how do we break them down into smaller parts that could be more understandable? And even though now we have this chat GPT and artificial intelligence, which can help to a certain extent, but now it's looked at as a cooperation or collaboration between people, individuals, researchers, and machines, or let's say, in this case, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can help us, for sure, can make our jobs easier than before, but actually, the main job, when you talk about research, it is the researcher. It's the researcher who should be in control of doing this breaking down of statements or arguments. It should be totally controlled by the researcher. We keep getting messages now when you use ChatGPT or let's say Gemini or other tools of artificial intelligence. They tell you that it's not, you know, like what you get might not be accurate. They tell you in the message. I don't know whether we pay attention or not, but now we can see it, that you cannot fully trust ChatGPT. So that's why we need also to be, how can be in control of our own research. We might get help, as I said, but the most important role lies on the shoulder of the researcher. Okay, so like, and we will see that when it comes accuracy, when you talk about critical thinking, one of the criteria is, you know, clarity and accuracy. These are some of, as we will come along, those criteria later on. Okay. Now the first thing that the Delphi report mentions at the beginning about this skill of analysis, it defines analysis as the ability to identify the intended and actual inferential relationship among arguments. This is including, by the way, statements, questions, concepts, descriptions, or other forms of representations. You can add to that those coming from scientific background, graphs, images, texts. So to identify the intended and the actual. And here is the challenge about conceptualization, by the way. Conceptualization, and I told you last time about the communicative thinking skill, bridging the gap between the sender or the writer, the author, and the receiver. Okay, so they talk about the intended message. Okay, so like when you talk about exploration, you talk about possibilities. It's true. You might have, you might come up with or create some kind of relationship, but is that what is intended actually? Is that the actual? Is that so? In this case, even if you get some data from ChatGPT, we have to test, we have to verify. That's very important. We have to verify and to test the data that we are referring to. Okay, what is the intended and the actual inferential relationship between statements, questions, concepts, descriptions, or any other form of presentation? We may speculate also. That's good. The starting point, you know, like you might, in the process of verifying and dealing with the data, you might start with speculating this intended, let's say, this intended and actual relationship between the different parts of the whatever it's a statement or argument or any other, or the problem, what kind of problem you are dealing with. Any research will be dealing with challenges, problems. So how would you get a better understanding, meanings and relationships, okay, of what you have at hand? So this, at the beginning, as I said, you might come up with a number, maybe 2, 3 possibilities. You need creativity here also in speculating and trying to anticipate what is meant by a statement, by a definition. When you deal with definitions, let's say also, so what's meant by that? Okay, so you need to speculate for sure, but we need, while doing this process, we need to use certain criteria and apply them into those maybe speculated interpretations, or let's say in this case, inferential relationships. Okay, so by doing so, we try to verify, to make sure that what we claim is the intended and the actual inferential relationship is true. That is what is meant. I remember when I was studying the book of Al-Muwafaqat للإمام الشاطبي, and it was a special class. We were only 8 students with Sheikh Atiyah Salim. He is the disciple of Sheikh Muhammad Al-Amin Al-Shanqiti. And I remember that this was volume number 3, Al-Maqasid. And it took us about 3 years, more than 3 years, to finish one volume with this weekly class. And I remember that the book has been studied or by another contemporary scholar, and in one place, this scholar mentioned that maybe what is meant by this is not what intended by Al-Imam al-Shatibi. Maybe, and this author is he's a big scholar, as Azhari scholar. And I remember when Al-Ustaz Atiyah Salim rahimahullah was commenting, he said, no, the original intended message is more acceptable and more what we call it, we said more scholarly stated than what has been understood by this. This is the whole book, the whole volume. I remember only this place, at one place, where there are many every page there are comments by this ustaz. But there was only this place where a Sheikh Atiyah Salim made this kind of comment. He said that no, we leave it as it is. We cannot interpret it the way this researcher, it's kind of a research, is stating or saying. The same thing, my sisters and my brothers also, in Viva, when we go to Viva, we submit our thesis, master thesis or PhD thesis. We might get into this situation where our comments, our observations, our inferential relationship that we come up with, we might not be what we call it accepted by the examiner. Usually the examiner is someone from the field, and most likely he's a professor or at least associate professor, and he spent ample time, enough time in dealing with research, dealing with articles, this and that. So, like when they say that you need to re-look into what you are saying or what you are stating, you know, what you are trying to conclude, or what you, so like that's the purpose also of the Viva, that to make sure that whatever the effort that has been made by the researcher is verified, acceptable to the experts, to those who are experts in the field of this field that you, whatever it is, Islamic revealed knowledge, human science, or what we call it, applied science. We have 3 different fields. Okay, so you might be, you know, like interpret. In this case, it's more of analyzing rather than interpreting. Means that you are trying to understand, to identify and understand, you know, what has been said about a topic, about or about a subtopic, okay, and you put it in a way, it's like in your own words, you put it there, and it's like you are trying to analyze a graph or an image or whatever, okay. You can see in the example also, even like sometimes when you look at the news and look at the audience and look at their facial expressions, their nonverbal communication, okay, what are they trying to say or to convey, or this or that. Okay, so you might be making this kind of inference, or what you call concluding or conclusion, but whether would that be acceptable or not, that is something else. How would you read the data? You know, like usually we are dealing with data. If you are dealing with numbers, like some studies are field research. So you are dealing with samples, you are dealing with numbers. So to what extent also, you know, we can generalize. So the researcher is trying to make a comment. To what extent it can be generalized, okay, and accepted. So that is what we are. Why analysis? That's what we are trying to achieve. Okay, so why analysis matters? Okay, by analyzing something, well, something I'm sure now you know is an argument. It could be a statement. It could be even like a concept. You know, like they are suggesting the concept of democracy. Let's say any concept now says, you know, people might have different look at, or in terms of breaking down its components. Okay, So you are trying to analyze something. It could be an event. There was like every day, I wouldn't say only yesterday or before yesterday, like the events. By the way, as a practice, I would say if you are watching news and there is an event, okay, I've watched about 4 or 5 different what we call it TV programs in trying to analyze one event that took place few days ago. And every one of those who are analyzing the event is looking at it from different angles, different, that they, even the way they break it down, you can see that they have different ways or approaches, even of breaking down. When we say breaking down, the data related, let's say, to this case, in this case, to an event. So the more you watch and listen to those who are considered experts in the field, the more you gain the skill of analyzing. The more you gain, not only analyzing, even conceptualizing. I told you about the book of James Adams. That's about breaking through concepts. Okay, it's about conceptualization. Okay, so when you are dealing with research, you are dealing with either your own conceptualization, and we want to make sure that your conceptualization is acceptable. We might have different conceptualization, different analysis, okay? But at the end, we have to make sure that it is verified, it's clear, it's with certain criteria that we will come to in the next few slides. So we need to use certain criteria where we make sure that certain conceptualization or analysis is true, it's acceptable, okay? We can depend on the report, Delphi report. They talk about trustfulness. You get so many data every day, whether it is economic, social, whether it is within your field of study, or so that this trustfulness, to what extent we can trust the analysis. Okay, the same thing if you are analyzing some data in your research. So as I said in the Viva, the process of evaluation and examination, assessment is like this. We want to see the reliability, to what extent the data, or let's say your analysis of the data, is reliable, it's clear, etc. So that's what we, okay, when you deal with the data, and here we mention about why we need analysis. Usually there are a lot of disjointed facts, as they call it, disjointed facts. The job of the researcher is how to make connections. How would you make connections? So in the process of making connections, also we want to make sure that those connections are trusted, that they are reliable, they are they can be taken for granted, as they say. To what extent we take it for granted? You are claiming some. So the whole world is based on claims. You see, at the court is based on claims. TV and social media is based on claims. And, you know, like research, you are dealing with arguments and claims. As you are analyzing, you are also making argument. So, and here also others like the examiners will test your arguments. To what extent that your arguments are clear and reliable and acceptable. To what extent? Okay, you are trying to make connections. And when I told you about these five different analysis of an event, the event, you have so many parts, you have so many data parts, and okay, everyone is trying to make connections, but the thing is, you know, to what extent? So for us, maybe if we are not experts, sometimes we might be fooled. You know, like whether it is it has to do with something has to do with research or whatever. So we have to make sure that we are making purposeful arguments, as we will see one of the terms used by the report. Purposeful arguments. So you are, as a researcher, coming up with purposeful arguments. Okay? To what extent they make sense, your arguments. You know, when you write a paragraph, you are writing how many? 2, 3 arguments. So like, to what extent they are trusted, they are reliable, they are, so that's for sure. Also, as I said earlier, people might have looking from different angles. And here is where the personality of the researcher comes. Okay? That is, when you are being examined, you can defend. They call it defend. You have to defend your ideas. You have to defend your arguments, your conclusions. You know, at the end of each chapter, there is a conclusion. That's part of that's the part of the research. Okay, so we want to make sure that let's say someone, the examiner, might argue with you that something is wrong in your argument, and then if you have your own way of looking at this thing, you looked at it from different angle, you looked at it from a different perspective, okay? you can defend. So you can say something about your arguments, about your ideas and concepts that you today, this morning, I had a meeting with one of my students who's my supervisee. So, and he started, I believe that it is, I told him this is a good start. He started with the main concepts that he will be dealing with in the research, the essential, concepts that he will be dealing in the research. I said, that's a good start. Okay, so moving from disjointed facts to interconnected understanding, the green one. Okay. Before that, if you look up, the report mentions about that critical thinking is rooted in the process of inquiry. That's why the more you are skillful in critical thinking, the better you are in research. You know, the best you are, that you are mastering the critical thinking, what we call skills, in this case, analysis, the better your research would be. Okay? The more meaningful your research will be. The better contribution at the end you want to contribute to the field of your study. So, what kind of contribution? So your contribution would be more fruitful, more meaningful, and more trusted as well. Okay, getting started with analysis, the report includes, okay, that is, these are the three sub-skills. You can see the blue one on the top. The report includes. These are the three sub-skills of analysis: examining ideas, detecting arguments, and analyzing arguments. These are the sub-skills. So if this is what we are actually trying to achieve or to do when we talk about analysis, the process of analysis. So it tells you, don't just read it, ask what are the parts, how do they fit together. So that's even in the data that you collected. The data that you collected. What are the parts? You need to see clearly what are the parts and how they are connected or how they fit. Do they fit together? That's why in fallacies, which is a growing up, by the way, they started with about 20. Now they even in 2002 or 3 there was a good book on fallacies where they are up to more than 60 fallacies. Okay, so for the one of the fallacies that is related to our skill today is in any argument, you have the premises and you have the conclusion. So one of the fallacies, they say it doesn't follow. It doesn't follow. So that is part of what we try to do. So we will take them one by one, examining ideas, detecting arguments, and analyzing arguments. Okay, and there is an example for you, for all of us at the end there of the slide. When you read an opinion piece, when you read an opinion piece, so like I like when I read the New Straits Times, I don't read the whole thing for sure, and no one can read the whole thing. But the letters, I like to read the letters of the audience or the readers, and they state they have about 2 pages for that. I like that. Why? Because usually it's an opinion with regard to something going on. Okay, so how do you analyze that opinion? Okay, you analyze it by identifying the main claim. What is the main claim? The supporting reasons and any counter arguments presented. So sometimes, and this happens in our research, there might be arguments, but also counter arguments. So which one should we follow? Something is wrong. There is an argument, there is a counter argument. It's good to practice that every day. If it could be done also while you are those who like I wouldn't say it's a hobby. Rather, it might start at early stages as a hobby, but it should be, to me, reading books, reading literature, reading. It's a must, according to our Ustaz Akram Diya Al-Umari from Iraq, professor. He said it's a must. And he believes that a university student, postgraduate, he said at least 6 hours reading, he should or she should be reading at least 6 hours a day. If it's less than that, he said there is a violation of the of the postgraduate requirements, student requirements. Okay, so here we start with examining ideas. So examining ideas means looking closely at concepts to understand their parts. Concepts. The concept you can see at the end down there, the concept of democracy, which is being challenged today, and what do you call it? We have arguments and counter arguments. Yes. How? Oh, you mean, no, it's to have counter arguments. If it's a minimum level, you know, like it's normal. You know, like you are talking about the whole thesis, 230 pages. So you are talking about 2-3 places of if the thesis is good, the work is good. So 2 or 3 places where the researcher run into this counter of his. We are talking about of his own argument, because counter argument, there are two. There are two kind of counter argument. The counter argument of the data. I don't know whether you are asking about that. Yes. And this depends on the literature that you are using. We cannot, we cannot say how much, percentage or this or that. But at least you are able from time to time, or at least few times, to identify these counter arguments. Okay, so when you have definitions, like actually you start the first chapter, you are talking about definitions. And definitions, you might come across 4 or 5 definitions. Okay, so now, and you trace those 3, 4, 5 definitions. Now, some students keep quiet. What's your stand? So this is only can be done with analysis. I'm taking only one part, and that is, definitions. For you as a researcher, you have 3 or 4 definitions. So which one is, let's say, to you, which one is more accurate, more maybe acceptable, more reliable, more this or that, based on certain criteria and based on your analysis? It says there, it involves identifying the core claims. What are the core claims and concepts within a body of text or conversation? So that's for the sub-skill number 1. Okay, identifying the core claims, the core concepts. I told you that my students started with this is what you call by qadar, that today we have this it's not by design, rather by qadar. Okay, one day one of our professors was saying something like this. This was more than 15 years ago. That he was late or what. There was a committee, and whether he was a bit late, 5-10 minutes, and he said, it's not by like it's not by design, it's by qadar, he was saying. Anyway, by design and by qadar. So starting with the concepts, identifying what are the main concepts in your research. That's why you also start with definitions in the first chapter. Okay, so you start with that, and you start with trying to examine, analyze the different parts of this data that you have, that you collected. Okay, you collect the data related, and then you try to examine. You look at those definitions, assumptions, and how different ideas relate to each other. Okay. The Delphi report emphasizes understanding, okay, the conceptual considerations. And remember, in our first workshop, I told you about the importance of conceptualization. Conceptualization. The way conceptualization is actually the way you look at something. The way you look at something. Whether the way that way of looking at something, that could be either within the data you are dealing with, or it is you, the way you are conceptualizing, the way you are looking at the topic or at the subtopic. Okay, so conceptual considerations, there should be, upon which a judgment is based. Based on these conceptual considerations, a judgment is reached. So you are dealing with judgment. How reliable, how trustful that judgment, that's what we want to okay, how to learn examining the ideas. Here in this slide, you know, I told you about the criteria. The report, Delphi report, notice that critical thinking require using intellectual criteria. You need that, so that's very important, the green one. Clarity, credibility, accuracy, and precision. How precise, how accurate, so these are criteria. I told you earlier about anticipation, speculation. You may speculate a certain, you know, in coming up with an argument, with analyzing, you might, you know, speculate, use speculation. But as I said, you have to have not only one, you have to have, like, how do you understand the definition? How you look at the different parts of a definition, okay? One definition or one concept, how it is stated there. Okay, so to do that, you need the criteria. You cannot speculate without criteria. You cannot. You might, no matter how creative you are. You know, some, okay, or a number of researchers, they should be creative enough, and they should have or master creative thinking skills. But creativity alone, cannot be what we call it, in speculating. You are speculating, you know, solutions, strategies, you know, you are approaches, this and that. So like you have 2 or 3. The best thing is once you have 2, 3 approaches or solutions or categorization or this or that, you need to apply the critical thinking criteria. So one thing that you can do at early stages is to use the table. To use the table where you use the critical thinking criteria, clarity, credibility, accuracy at the, let's say, left side, the column. And then the other columns, you have, let's say, three different analysis, three different strategies, based on your speculation. And then you apply the criteria. For sure, the one that, out of the three, the one that you tick all, let's say in this case, you have 2, 3, 4. Okay, the column where all the 4 are ticked, this means this is more acceptable. This is more trustful. That's how, so, you know, in the process of writing a research, you need to practice all these as you go along, you know. That's why I told you maybe last week also, تقنين التصوف or قواعد التصوف by Sheikh Zarruq. He's one of the Sufi scholars in the Al-Maghrib Al-Islami. And he's of the view, you see, when it comes to Sufis, they have more use of speculation. You know, they use speculation. So like they can come with different scenarios with this and that. But according to a Sheikh Zarruq, where he was a faqih and was as well, he said, you cannot be a Sufi without being a faqih. Faqih, fiqh, you are talking about the critical thinking. Tasawwuf, you are talking about creative thinking, open creative thinking. So according to Al-Imam Zarruq, he said, you need to use these criteria, different criteria of critical thinking, of fiqh, what he calls al-fiqh, so that you can judge and rely on a certain, what we call it, scenario, or a certain, as it has been mentioned, solution or judgment. You know, you have all these. It could be a judgment. So that judgment could be only speculative. This judgment we need to test. How to test it? We test it with those different critical thinking criteria. Clarity. These are not the only one. We have so many other criteria, by the way, but this is maybe if we have time, we can talk about that later on, inshallah. More criteria. Okay, this is just ideas for practice. How would you practice? Practice with complex topics, not with simple one. Okay? Like when it comes to social issue, or in whatever the discipline is. We said there are 3 main disciplines: social science, revealed knowledge, applied science. Okay, so you can start with a complex topic in your area of study, in your area of discipline, and break it down into different components. Okay, what are the different groups of people involved? What are the different causes? What are the different effects? Okay, for example, now to illustrate, when analyzing a protest, you could examine the different groups involved, their specific grievances, and the stated goals of the movement, if it's a move. Okay, nowadays every day we see those what we call it protest or rallies, this or that. So we can use it to practice the first sub skill. How would you break it down? Okay, you read a piece of opinion, or you read a column in a journal, or daily journal, and so try to see something that you like to read about, something that's also very important, something that's interesting to you. Okay, and you try to break it down, the parts. How many parts you can come up with? You break it down to. Okay, that's one of the ways to practice. Let's move to sub-skill number 2, identifying arguments. So the first one was identifying ideas. Now we are talking about identifying arguments. And there we talked about judgments, we talked about concepts, let's say, etc., definitions. You are talking about ideas. And as De Bono says, that concepts are the mothers of ideas. Usually, you can group ideas under a concept. Okay. Number 2, identifying arguments. So you have an argument. You have now you have a paragraph. Usually it's like a paragraph. Usually this paragraph, it could be a short or long paragraph. It could be 3 lines to 5 lines, the normal paragraphs. Okay, so in any argument, there is a claim. You should be able to identify or to find out the claim. Okay, someone is making a claim. Any claim should be supported by evidence, by proofs, by reasons or other reasons. Okay, proofs, evidence, reasons. So usually it's good also to do some exercise, daily exercise. As you read books, as you collect data, okay, try to look for those arguments people making. Especially like some of our students, they might have a comparative study. So you have two different perspectives, two different scholars. And so like try to find out the claims within any given piece of reading that you are doing. Try to identify the claim someone is making and the reasons. Based on what? This is a claim. Based on what? The claim could be also a judgment. So based on what? So you're talking about finding the what and the why in given statement. In a given statement, the what and the why. Okay, so the what is the argument and the why is the reasons. For example, it says there is a statement. Here there is a statement. The new policy will fail. Oh, you can see it's a judgment as well. right? The new policy will fail because is what? So because right away, you know, once you find out because, that is the support. That's the reasoning. That's the support. Okay. So the new policy will fail because it's too expensive and no one supports it. So you have two reasons for claiming that the policy will fail. Okay. So now in this argument, in this statement, the argument is the policy will fail. That's the argument. And the reasons are it's expensive, or its expenses, and the lack of support. And as we said, with using criteria, by the way, we can examine, we can clarify. Critical thinking is about clarification. We can clarify, is this argument or statement, you run into these statements in research. So you might want to ask, what is the argument? What are the reasons given? What are the proofs? What are the evidence? The backup. Okay. And then you analyze those different parts. Do they relate? Okay. Do they relate? What kind of relationship? You have to find out the interconnected relations. What are the interconnected relations in these statements? And to what extent that they are reliable, they are clear, they are truthful, okay, etc. Let's move. Okay, here's let's just how to learn identifying arguments. Once you have to look for words like because, therefore, since, as a result. Actually, because, therefore, since, this comes after the, right away after the argument. You are, or they might also be before the argument. But because of such and such, the such and such will take place, or will be, or will happen. Okay. So look for those clues. Look for those clues to identify arguments. Okay. And by learning to spot, you see, there is some art. They call it the art, and the researcher has to be, or has to have, such art. They call it the art of noting. The art of noting. You know, like sometimes you can see that among any family, any friends, you can see that some people are more skillful in note taking, or not note taking, note observing. Observing. It has to do with observing. Okay, spotting. So we call it the note taking. Note taking here, you are talking about clues. Okay, the clues. That's why even in fiqh and usul al-fiqh, you have al-ima'ah, and you have the others. They have also their own their own words that you can learn. Okay, so you have that help you to spot an argument that is being made. Okay, you can quickly find the structure of an argument and begin to understand its parts. Once you spot those clues, the one that is shared on the top. So these are clues. Once you find them, this can help you to identify and not only identify, also the structure of the argument. And the structure of the argument, the premises and the conclusion, the argument, and which is usually also a judgment, and backing up proofs, evidence, and reasons. Okay. Since we have extended the time for the workshop to 2.5 hours, so I will try not to exceed 12 o'clock, and then we will have half an hour for discussion, inshallah. This is just an example. We will not stop for example to how to identify arguments. Someone is saying we should invest in renewable energy. Why? Because it reduces pollution and creates jobs. So hopefully you can see where the argument is and where the other parts of the argument. When we say because it reduces pollution and creates the jobs. So identifying the arguments is the first step in analyzing. Or one of the core or the sub skills of analyzing. So you need it. You need to identify the arguments first before you can make. So the second step is you start making connections. So it's you, the researcher. Once you identify the parts, how you break it down. So you have 2 lines. I told you 2, 3, sometimes even more than that, up to 4 or 5. So how would you break it down? How would you identify the argument and its parts? Then after that, how would you make connections? How would you make connections? So in making these connections, you might be using, as I said, speculation. That's why in making connections, don't depend on only one scenario. Try to come up with 2, 3, 4 scenarios, because then you apply criteria. Maybe you can choose the suitable scenario that goes with your arguments, that goes with your also with your, what we call it, logical argumentation. Yes. Sub-skill number 3, analyzing. So that is, okay. Once you cannot analyze an argument if you cannot identify, if you cannot break down its parts. Okay. So that's why number 2 comes first. You need to identify the argument. Then comes analyzing the argument, which is part 3, skill number 3. Analyzing arguments goes a step further. you identified the argument. Now you go further. What do I get from there? Now I know the parts. Okay, so now how can I make connections? To what extent? So it could be as we said, it could be a definition, it could be a judgment, it could be this or that. To what extent I can take it for granted, I can depend on, I can rely on. So in analyzing arguments, you not only find the claim and the reasons, but you also look at how strong the connections between them. So that is, are they strongly connected? Or is it like it's just a matter of what we call it, speculation? Speculation. And there is one thing about speculation that can be learned from the writings of De Bono. He says, first of all, creativity is the art of possibilities. The art of possibilities. So when you speculate the possible meanings, the possible judgments, the possible approaches. So like you speculate two or three. You speculate two or three or maybe even more. Okay. De Bono says speculations are they are all true when you take them. There is what he calls logic bubble, and now this is a very there is a what we call it a new area in logic bubbles. So he said, De Bono says, so like you have a scenario. If you take the scenario within a given circumstances, within a given connections, it makes sense. Even though maybe a better scenario is number 2 or number 3 is more reliable. You know, so that's why do not depend on the first speculated scenario of whatever you want to come up with, approach, a solution to a problem, strategy, whatever. You should have a number of speculated approaches, let's say, and then or categories. You want to categorization. Okay, so don't depend on what comes to the mind, rather than also do the speculation. You have 3, 4 possibilities of, let's say, in this case, of analysis. 3, 4 possibilities of analysis. Okay, then you may use the critical thinking criteria to decide which speculation, which scenario is more reliable, is more acceptable. And by the way, I mentioned acceptable many times today, this workshop. And you have to know that acceptability is Anyone can? Acceptability is one. Acceptability is one. Anyone would like to try to finish the sentence? You have to refer to the context. One option. No, it is one option. Acceptability is one of the criteria, critical thinking criteria. We mentioned there were 4 mentioned by the report. Okay. Now, I told you, maybe later on I share with you. There are many other. So like acceptability. But however, acceptability, there is what is acceptability? Maybe acceptable to you, but not acceptable to others. So that's why they said, when you use acceptability as a criterion, you have to make sure that it's not only acceptable to you, or maybe to the company. Okay, if you are an institution, when you talk about university, we have the administration, we have lecturers, and we have the students. Maybe acceptable to the administration, but not to the lecturers, or not to the, maybe acceptable to the lecturers, but not acceptable to the students. Okay. So that is, that's also when we do the analysis, and when we use the speculation as well, and we come up with scenarios. If you write down whatever comes to your mind and take it to your supervisor, I will tell you, this happened to me in master level. You know, writing and writing and writing one chapter, because my supervisor meets me once a week or 2 weeks, once I have finished the chapter. So I went to my supervisor, and he had a look. It was chapter 2, by the way. So he gone to, the way I would submit it to him, give him a chance for 1 week, then we meet for discussion. Now we do that through the email or WhatsApp, whatever. Okay, so when I came the next time, so he crossed. He said, you have to rewrite this chapter number 2. What? You know, I spent time, how many hours, this, that. He said, you have to, you know, I know his colleague. He's my ustaz also. So this is my supervisor. I remember asking him, do you mind if I ask other lecturers before I come to you? Maybe this was later on when I learned. So anyway, I went to the other ustaz, which is his friend or colleague. I said, look at my supervisor. I was so disappointed. So this ustaz, he told me, he was laughing, smiling. He was smiling. He said, Jamal, you know, we all went into this kind of process. So first of all, take it easy, accept it. This means something is wrong in your chapter, in your arguments, in your, so don't spend more time Okay, paraphrase, redo it, use a different strategies or what to come up with maybe different ideas or with different conclusions, this or that. So I learned, don't just write down. I remember also one of my PhD students, mashallah, now he's already appointed as a lecturer at one of universities. When he said he was so late, I was waiting and waiting about 2 months. Anyway, then he sent me chapter 1. And when I looked at the chapter, you know, what we call it, unverified facts, not using referencing. He didn't use, there is no reference, there is no footnotes, this, that. I remember I read the first, it was about 30 pages, just imagine, more than 30. So I sent him an email. I said, brother, it was a brother. So, brother, I will not accept any, in the future, I will not accept a chapter like this. But this time, I will tell you what are the problems. It's your right, and it's my duty. Okay, number 1, no footnotes, no, where is your personality? A lot of blah, 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 blah. Where's the quotations? Where is this? Where are you in all this? You understand? So I said, make sure in the future I will not accept it. You have to make a better effort. So back to the issue. Even when you analyze an argument, you might get an idea, a speculative idea. Don't stop there. Try to get another speculative idea. Try to, making connections. In making connections, like, you use an approach or a certain scenario in coming up, but this is based on speculation, I tell you, which is not mentioned there. So you, what do you call it? When you are trying to even analyze, it means that you are making connections between different parts. Okay, so now the question is, don't depend and rely on the first scenario that comes to your mind. Try to look for and speculate, as I said, 3, 4 scenarios of analysis, of analyzing. Think how one way to do it is, they call it digestive. That as we digest food, we also digest ideas. So, like, whatever you wrote down this morning, try to think about it. One way to do it. So, like, say, you find out with this kind of illumination, as they call it, you will be getting more scenarios and more ideas and more speculations. Say, it could be, maybe I'm wrong in saying that this connection, looking at the issue from this perspective. There might be another perspective. There might be another approach. And sometimes even this approach will jump into your mind while you are, so you have to talk, you have to have to establish a monologue inside your mind, you know. So you got this data, and you, this is your first way of analyzing the data. So try to live with that, and try to think about it. And so I tell you, if you are talking about one day, it makes within 24 hours, it makes a difference. Okay? That more and more ideas will come to your mind. We have to live our research. It's not, just, something comes to the mind, you write it down. Copy, paste sometimes, copy, paste, AI, this, that. No. You have to allow this kind of interdigestion, what we call it, idea digestion, and concepts digestion. So like, okay, you need to do that. The more you live your research, the more your input. The better your input, the more critical is your input. The better is your analysis. The better is your analysis. As I told you last time about the flight, this MH370, right? Like these days, there are a lot of international events going on, whether in the regions, in countries, or outside there. Anyway, as I said, sometimes people, especially the people who are interviewed within the first few hours of the event, usually they might come up with some kind of conceptualization, making connections, making analysis. At the end, it's their opinion. At the end, your research is your baby, it's your opinion, it's your view, it's your visualization, it's your conceptualization. So live your thesis. That's the best. And one way to do it is just what I told you. Okay? You write it down. Don't do anything about it. Give it a time. Try to live with that, with every part of your research. Try to live it. Try to make the effort that it takes. The more effort, we know some students, due to certain circumstances, I've met and came across some students, like, they have 2 years they are given, especially with the old system. But with the eye monitor now, you cannot do that. By the way, you cannot skip. So like, suddenly, I know 2 stories. One is my student, unfortunately. But they had to suffer for because I didn't agree or prove what they have came up with, until I still share my own comments, views, observations, etc. I said I will not prove it. Even, I will lose this. I will I will need extension. And you are given only once extension with a good argument from the supervisor. Okay, so coming, you are dormant volcano. A researcher should be like a volcano. No. So continuous eruption, this, that. So, you are dormant for 1 year, 1 year and a half. Then in 6 months, you want to come up with your research. How much? Maybe you still claim that you have made the effort. It's not what it requires. It's not enough. And usually what you end up with, a problem when even if the supervisor said, okay, when it comes to Viva, you will face your fate. So don't allow this to happen. Live it. Live your how to live your research. How to live my research. How to learn analyzing arguments. Ask questions like, is this reason actually true? Allahu Akbar. Is this reason is actually true? Does this reason really support the claim? Okay. Is there another way to think about this? That's creativity, by the way. We need both critical thinking and creative thinking. And today I shared with you, like when I talked about speculation, that's part of the creative thinking, actually. So we need both. So asking questions. And asking questions is part of digestion. Like you have a piece of opinion piece. You have a view. You have a paragraph. You are the researcher. Try to think about it again and again and ask questions. And ask questions. And ask questions. Okay, so this, by the way, As'ad Mikhail, last time I told you about psychology of intuition or inspiration. He talks about the best way to react or to get ideas and scenarios with something that already you have came across is through asking questions. Asking questions. So these are some of the questions, but actually these are some of the questions that can help and can apply to any argument. But you will be able to create your own questions. And I like his way of calling that التسكع الإلهامي. التسكع. التسكع means lipa. You call it lipa. Going from one place to another. Al-ilhami. The intuitive, what you call it, you are going from one, so like from one piece or from one part to another part. So, and you are asking questions. How do they relate? In what way they are related or connected? Can we think of it different way? You have to think this way. Okay. The more you, I will read only the title at the top. Practice with a short article. That is one thing. The green color, the critical thinker, as stated in the Delphi report, they said a critical thinker as a diligent in seeking relevant information. You need that when you are writing a research. For example, that one you may refer to later. But this time, inshallah, I will share with you in the group the PowerPoint number 1 and 2, inshallah, today. No one reminded me. I was so busy with marking and, so I apologize because last time I promised to share with you. Analysis is tool for problem solving. It's enough to just to critical thinking is purposeful judgment. It's not just a judgment, rather than a purposeful judgment. Using mind mapping. That's a suggestion also, okay? To practice good analysis, you can use the mind mapping. And now there are so many YouTubes available on mind mapping, okay? I've attended 1997 in Singapore. Tony Buzan, he's the first, I think, among the pioneers to come up with the mind maps and mind mapping. Let's read this time differently. The last what you call it? For instance, a mind map about historical battle could have branches for the key leaders, the military strategies, the location, and the final outcome. Okay, so these are just might come to someone who's designing, and you can see when it comes to design, you are talking about creative thinking. So speculation is usually we need the speculation before design, by the way. De Bono actually looks at creative thinking as speculation and design, if you want to put it in short. Okay, so I think I promised you another 3 minutes. The goal of analysis, maybe this is the the last slide I share with you. The goal of analysis. The goal is to understand the structure of an idea or a problem. You can go on, huh? How would you go on? Of an idea or a problem or a strategy or a judgment. Okay, so you want to understand the structure. Okay, so the Delphi report states that critical thinking is a liberating force in education. A liberating force in education. Actually, unfortunately, the old way of the what do you call it? The conventional teaching and learning is totally different from this. You know, we want to produce students, other students of the same lecturer. No, we want to produce ulama, scholars. Well, that's why I like the term that is used in ISTAC, looking at our students, postgraduate students, and as the future ulama. We are looking at you as the future ulama. So the main thing is we want our students to use their own minds, to use their own. When we say, some people, they think, to use their own minds. Who are they? What are you? We have to train our students to be the scholars of the future. So how to do that is when we share with them the knowledge, the way that they can apply, the way that they can apply to their research, to their daily life. So what we mentioned here, you can use it in daily life, all your daily life. Reading a journal, watching TV, listening to a lecture. You can apply the skill of analysis. Try to identify the ideas, try to identify the arguments, and that argument, how it is connected, what are the parts of that arguments, what are the reasons given, what are the proofs, the evidence, and how they are connected. Do I agree with that or do not agree? So like when we do the research, I think that this could be the conclusion of my workshop today. Barakallahu fikum.
And thank you very much, Prof, for the insightful session. Today's session and discussion, we learned that research analysis is not merely a technical process, but an intellectual engagement with the data. The session highlighted the importance of identifying key patterns, grounding analysis, and sound theoretical frameworks, and ensuring that findings are presented in a clear and structured manner. Few important ideas I already written, I want to share. When we analyze data, we also claim. This is very important point. Number two, the more you are in critical thinking, the best you will be a researcher. And the third, we should not just write the arguments, but we should identify the main claim. The postgraduate student must read 6 hours a day. This is very important point for us. To examine ideas, we should create table and categorize the data. For identifying arguments, find the claims and its reasons. For example, the Prof mentioned because. We should find because. The because is the reason. Finding the what and why in the statement. Finding the interconnected relations in the statement. And the second last, the art of noting and observing. This is very important for a student. Creativity is the art of possibility. Acceptability is one of the critical thinking criteria. You should not depend on just one scenario. So overall, the session emphasized that strong analytical skills are central to producing meaningful and impactful research. So at this point, we will open the floor for questions and discussions. Participants are welcome to ask questions or share brief reflections related to today's topics. Thank you.
Sir, I have 2 questions. The first one is, in your opinion, how much sponsors or any organizations financial assistance can affect the research judgment? For example, if an external sponsor has certain objective that you have to include in the research, is this right to do? To be influenced by external sponsors in your research? Does it affect our analysis?
For sure, it might affect either positively or negatively. So like That's why students, even though if they are in need for sponsorship, we have to be careful in selecting what you call it, the sponsor. And we have to look into if they are demanding or they are asking. Well, I came across certain like Western universities where they support students, postgraduate students, and they said they have they came up with specific areas of study. If you want us to sponsor your study, you have to write within these topics, certain topics. Okay. Okay. To me, number one, the interest of the student is the topics. Let's say in this case, is the topic is of your interest or not? That's very important. To what extent also those sponsors impose, to what extent they impose, let's say, their own requirements or whatever for their scholarships. We have to be careful also not to be used, not to be used by others. If we are, that's why I said number one is interest. Am I interested? Number two, even I am interested. So like, is there any what we call it, what are the implications? To what extent those scholars, the scholarship sponsor is demanding? To what extent? Maybe it's for their own specific objectives, let's say, which we don't know. That we have to be careful. To me, students have to be careful, and not to forget, based on the Delphi report, the last thing that is mentioned is that we should be free from any what we call it, kind of force or enforcement that maybe that could be maybe not ethical. It could be, as I said, is for the interest of others, but not especially for us as Muslims. Is this research can be the output, what I'm going to come up with, does it contribute, let's say, to Islamic research, whether in whatever the discipline is? So and here is we have certain values that guide us. So we have also to pay attention to that. Okay, so the main thing is, if I want to do research, I want to do it freely on my own. I mean, not freely here. I don't want the scholarship, but I mean, without any kind of compulsion, without any kind of, imposing, or so like you are being used as a machine, they are using your mind as a machine for their own purpose, for their own objectives. So to me, that's, yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Okay. You use this.
Assalamu alaikum. Uh, Throughout the lecture, you are using the word speculation, and I would like to know, should we use the word speculation or should it be hypothesizing? Because hypothesis can be true or false, and this is the process, as you said in the lecture, that is the process of affirmation and negation. That is, we find 3 or 4 hypotheses, or as the professor or as professors using, we speculate in 3 or 4 with 3 or 4 arguments, and then it is through affirmation or negation that we are doing. So is this hypothesis or speculation? Because speculation is a word that comes with a negative connotation with it, which cannot be affirmed. That's my opinion. So should we use the word hypothesizing or speculating?
So, yeah. Well, if we understand speculating, hypothesizing is actually speculating. It has to do with speculating. To me, since I mean, when I say to me, as a researcher, as a professor, as a supervisor, talking to my students, to me, as long as we have criteria to judge our speculations, then I don't see what we call it, that your fear is legitimate. You know, your fear that it could be with negative connotations. The term, it is, any term can be with some kind of negative connotations. So, but if you do speculation with applying certain criteria, that's why I spent some time on explaining the use of criteria, not only mentioning, but also how do we apply them. So I believe that with the use of the proper criteria, okay? By the way, some thinkers, they say certain research, certain studies might require the application of certain criteria, critical thinking criteria. Like, you know, I mentioned acceptability, convenience. I mean, there are many other, by the way, what you call it? Like another criteria is the value, or how something, how value it is, how valuable it is. So I believe that we might need to use suitable criteria for suitable research. That's one. With those criteria, for sure, I mentioned Al-Imam Zarruq. For Islamic studies, for sure we have al-Wahi, we have certain other Islamic criteria, al-Qiyas wal-Ijma' ma' al-Wahi ma'. So with the use of criteria, proper criteria, inshallah, we can, because actually speculation is to go beyond what we see. It has to do, as that's why I said it's creativity. So creativity is beyond what, beyond the limits. But with the criteria, we can then put the limits or see how do we limit, let's say, the judgment, the category, or what the strategy, or whatever the approach. Yes. So I believe.
I think we are already near to Friday prayer. So please, just last question.
Can I answer this question?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay.
I am-
We can have both. Actually, the agreement is until 12:30.
I see.
We have another 15, 10.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Kasar Gibran, PhD student of STEC. I have a very simple question. Prof, sometime we are writing a paragraph, and I think that this paragraph should be need of improvement. So we use the AI tool for improvement. So I want to know about your from your experience and according to your understanding, is this is ethically illegal to use AI tools for improving overwritings? This is my question. That I am writing a paragraph and I use the AI tools for improving that paragraph. So it's better for us. It's good for us. Ethically right for us.
It depends. It depends also. Like, but be careful. Whatever you share might be also shared with others. So, okay. To start with, I believe it should be the other way around. Maybe you start with AI, but then with your own thinking, your own what you call experience, with your expertise, field of study. So then you may try to improve. I don't know. It's not the other. The other way is you are saying you start and then you ask. There is an easier, for sure. That's what we request our students to do, by the way. So don't worry. We usually ask our students to proofread, to have their thesis edited and proofread by let's say in IRK we have, I think in all kulliyas they have lab. They call it language lab. Is it? They call it language lab, I believe, or you give it to someone who's known within the an expert, whether in Arabic or English, to maybe to review for you. That's part, another way of, there are many experts who are good for proofreading. They will not write it for you. That's very important. It's your own input, but you give it to someone who you trust also. Be careful. You trust someone who can help you to edit your input. Yeah. So we have to be careful also.
Sister,
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Prof. I have two questions actually. First question is about expressing your voice in your writing. So I think a lot of young researchers are faced with intimidation when we read the works of scholars, and we feel like we cannot really criticize, or like, how does our voice really matter? So I think there is a difficulty. Where do we get the courage to actually express our own voice in our writing? And the second question is about oh, okay, sorry.
To what extent? To me, when you talk about postgraduate students, there are two issues here. Issue number one, our scholars emphasize the following the the Islamic research methodology. the Islamic research methodology. You know, which means that if you are writing about something related to tafsir or fiqh or and someone who has no expertise, and he want to or she want to, without the proper tools, without the proper background, maybe that is what our scholars are what we call careful about. Okay, but if the student is well versed, well he has enough background and in the field of the study, okay, and also not to forget that he is being supervised. So here, maybe your question could be what put into two different categories. To what extent does the supervisor allow their students to what you call to express their own ideas? To what extent? Again, if the supervisor, again, has enough experience, don't tell me someone who's graduate, got their PhD 2, 3 years, 1, 2, 3 years. You know, you are talking about someone who has been in the field, to me, at least maybe 10 years of experience and expertise. Okay, so that is very important when we talk about to what extent, and he should be or she should be an expert in that field. You know, that's why in Malaysia now, they are enforcing new rules that you cannot have a master degree in one discipline, then you do PhD in a different discipline. So like now in many universities, as in the Ministry of Education in Malaysia, one thing is when someone apply for a job, they said all the three, the undergraduate, the master level, PhD level, should be in line. You know, tafsir, Islamic background, this, that. So this tells you also the fact that it's a joint venture or joint journey. This supervision is the responsibility of the researcher, number one, and the student. Okay, but number two, the student has to be given some area of, even like if he, let's say, what he's saying might not be agreed by the others in the, let's say, even in the kulliyah. And I share with you an example. This one brother, he was, anyway, he wanted me as a supervisor. So in developing the research proposal, so he came up with a research topic, and in the research topic, it is in the title, is Iman justifiable? So, so for me, I just followed with him slowly for the proposal. When it went to the kulliyah committee, postgraduate committee, one member, he said, this is nonsense. Iman is not justifiable. We don't accept that. So they sent me the decision. I met with the student. So he said, the student said, Ustaz, if they don't allow me to do that, I'm not going to do my research. Let them allow me to do that. And then we have, and if it's agreeable to the supervisor, let them or let others, we have examiners who will evaluate. And I want to face the, so without the details, don't ask me about the alhamdulillah, it was the thesis, it was a master thesis, and it was, what you call it, given pass with minor corrections, by the way, after that. But we have to, it was at the time of Ahmad Abu Shawq. He was the deputy dean for postgraduate in IRK. And I went to his office. I said, Prof. Ahmad, this is the situation. And my student is not happy, and I want to support him. So he said, let your student, with your also support, write one page to defend this choice of the topic. Now it's the topic. Is Iman justifiable? So after that, so we had discussions. The student came up with the justification. I sent it to Dr. Prof. Ahmed Abu Shawq. He already approved. And alhamdulillah, as I said, so I told in my discussion or argument, I said that our students, according to Prof. Akram, he's from Iraq. Allah, I hope, inshallah, he's doing well. I heard long time, may Allah grant him al-afiyah wa sihha ya Rab. He said, master thesis students should be allowed, or their personality, he's talking about their personality, should be at least up to 40%. PhD thesis, 60% of the import of the thesis should be coming from the student, which shows you that what we call it, the limit, well, not the limit, what is it?
Extend.
To what extent that is related to your question. So he said 60% should be allowed, at least, he said, at least. So it's a matter, thesis is master of argumentation also. Okay? So let the student face, if the supervisor, some of my students, I have a different view from theirs. I tell them, I can allow you to do that, but you have, at the Viva, you have to face your fate. You know, I will not have any support. Okay? So anyway, we should allow our students to come to share their personal perspectives, views, but base it again to the first point, based on Islamic research methodology. I believe there a little bit, only a little bit, because he put it as a question. You know, by the way, he said there are parts, but it's good maybe to share with you. There are parts which are justifiable. There are parts which not. So it's not all justifiable, but not all is what dogma or what that you cannot justify. Most of the arguments between scholars is based on that argument, this kind of argumentation. Anyway, it's a long.
Short question.
So is it 12:10? It's
Yeah,
already 12:10.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't mind. Maybe sister.
The next session I will ask. It's fine.
okay.
It's-
Okay.
Sorry everyone. The driver for the van is waiting right now at the lobby. Since it's we might face traffic jam, I think it's best for us to go to the van now. For those that are going back to Gombak.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Whoever is having their salah here, then you can stay here. And please, for those who haven't joined the WhatsApp group, you can come to me and I'll send you the QR link. And please, in the WhatsApp group, I've shared a link to the survey for the feedback. It will be really wonderful if each of you can give us a feedback. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are